Hello, everybody. Welcome to Short Circuit episode 6. This is part 3 of a deep dive into the famous Electra circuit. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 were about the LPB1 linear power booster by Electra Harmonics. So both of these circuits are from the 70s, and both of these circuits are very similar topologies called a common emitter, transistor, boost, or distortion. So essentially you have the pure boost of the Electra Harmonics LPB1, and then you have the Electra, which is almost the same. It has some different biasing on how the transistor decides to power, what are we doing with the power and how it feels and sounds. But they added hard clipping diodes. So if you look over, you essentially have this really interesting arrangement here where they just added clipping diodes on at the end, and it's pretty nice. Like normally, especially like with the LPB1, you kind of just had the transistor section there, but they added these clipping diodes, those clippers right there. So yes, this is part 3. So if you want to know some context about what is the Electra, I did the history and all of that in episode 1. Last episode on this was all about, what kind of transistors are possible and what can you do and kind of how the transistors worked. This is almost a part 2 of that. And I've decided, I could honestly do a live stream here that takes, I could spend 20 hours. I'm not exaggerating. I could spend all day on these simple circuits because they're not that simple. It's simple to clone one of these. Like you can get online and you can clone something, and be like, oh, I made an LPB1 or I made an Electra, and you could do that. What I'm interested in doing here with and kind of for you is honestly, what is each part doing and how does it work? So if I pull this schematic up again, I just have an iPad over here and, try to use it to the best of my ability here. So this is kind of the classic internet schematic for this. Now, this, you can Google right now, Electra distortion, and this will pop up. So we're going to kind of play off this today, and I'll do some squiggly lines and edits on this. And yeah, we'll go from there and just kind of jump right into this. So to start off, though, I don't think I'm missing anything there. I'm not. And if you're here, I'm pumped that you're here, and I really love this. I go in these phases with R&D. At JHS, I have an R&D team, and we're good at what we do. But I also, there's these big phases in JHS history where I'm designing stuff kind of rapidly. I've been out of that for a couple years, and then I've been jumping back in and like really interested in the simplistic circuits again, especially like starting back with the Lizard Queen that I did with Electra Harmonics, and just these transistor circuits. They're really fascinating. So I've been spending tons of hours on this on the side. I have notebooks full already, and I'm trying to divide that up into what's best, for you guys and gals. What can I talk about, and how can I teach you this? And I know this is a small crowd, but to me, I prefer the small crowds because it means you're really invested. So what my goal is now, and I'd love some feedback in the comments over the course of today's episode, I'm going to try to keep this at an hour. So it's 3:18 Eastern, 3:18 Central Time. So around 4:15, 4:20 probably, I'll wrap this up because I want to try to be more focused on smaller pieces of the puzzle. I can go for 2 hours and kind of go all over the circuit, but today specifically, we're going to talk about, with this circuit, how do you add a drive or a dirt control? Because there is no dirt control here. Essentially, in this circuit, what we have is we simply have, where to go? There you are. You simply, in this circuit, you have a very basic hard clipping arrangement. This hard clipping arrangement, you first kind of see this appear in the Sam Ash fuzz. You see it appear there. You see it appear secondly and most famously in the Distortion Plus and the DoD 250. And then you see it appear in the Klon, the Rat, the DS1. It's hard clipping. So how do you make, hard clipping adjustable? We'll talk about that. How can we make an adjustment here? Because this circuit as it stands, your signal goes in through the base, out the collector, right out to your amp. And there's not a single gain control here. You have a volume knob, but in a lot of famous circuits, actually the volume knob is just totally deleted. So today I'm just going to focus on how did people do this historically. There's textbook stuff. You'll see me hold up old textbooks all the time. Right now they're across the room, so I have to restrain myself from wanting to show you an old textbook. But we have a lot of interesting takes on how to do this. We have the Earthquaker speaker cranker. This is not a volume knob, actually. It says more. It's actually a gain control where the volume knob has been removed. So this, you might think that more is more volume on this, but it's not. There's a new version of this, which is exceptional. It's much more complicated now. But this is a classic Electra pedal. And that knob's not a volume knob. It's actually a gain control that's modified in. And that classic volume knob you just saw in the schematic is gone. Then you have stuff like the M drive. I always really loved this. Such a nice guy as well. This is a classic. Give a shout out if you remember this from the 2012s. This gain control is a pre-volume knob on the whole circuit. So it's the same as rolling your guitar volume back. Okay, so what that means is the circuit's actually tuned for a ton of distortion, but then you put a volume knob on the front of the circuit and back it off. That's clever, really simple. Then you have things like the Chula. The Chula is hilarious because it sounds freaking amazing. It sounds like $1 billion. It's the Josh Smith signature pedal, I guess you could call it. And this is Love pedal. It has one knob. The basic circuit doesn't even give you a control. It's just a really nice Electra circuit tuned like he wants to put it, and you just use your guitar volume. And then you have a high gain, and that knob right there is actually a distortion knob off the emitter. Then a personal favorite, and I think everyone, everyone who's ever loved this circuit, you have to give props to like the Amp 50 here. This is another Love pedal. One knob, and that knob's not a volume knob. And I can go on and on through kind of examples here. And I might actually, I'm gonna plug this Amp 50 up because I might actually go back and forth on it. But I don't want to spend a bunch of time there. We might do a comparison at the end of the series. And just one reminder before I jump into the breadboard, which I'm about to build it in front of you again quickly and then show you the gain controls. At the end of every circuit, I will have designed my hot take of the moment, and I'll give it to you. So the last episode of the Boost episode, there's a schematic download. You can have it and go build it. It's called the LPB1 Boost to Drive a Fuzz. And that's where I landed. So at the end of the Electra, I'm going to give you my schematic that I've, at this point, well, it probably worked 50, 60 hours on. You can have it. It'd be really fun. I don't know where we're going to land, but let's jump in. But I do want to just kind of go over the basic offerings from Copper Sound. So Copper Sound, you should go to the website if you're interested in this stuff because the resources they have are just so good. Let me scroll down here in my browser. So we have the DIY section of their site. A lot of different breadboard sizes. You've got these amazing substitution boxes that I'm using religiously now. I mean, these things are like life-changing. You got all kinds of stuff. And what's cool is you can click that little DIY components thing, and then you can pick out, you can build an EQ, you can build a hard clip distortion, which is the Electra. You can build a treble boost. You can build a silicon fuzz face, a MOSFET boost. This is like super cool stuff. So just keep in mind that don't skimp out on that. And here's the type breadboards I'm using. I don't know the size of this. It's in between the other ones I have. So there's a miniature one. That's really cool because you can build tons of stuff on this. I can also build something here and like have it be something I might, maybe I want to leave an LPB1 on here so that I could just toss it on the end of my other breadboard or something. There's a smaller one. I used this on the LPB1 episode. And Copper Sound's in here. He knows he knows everything. He can tell you the 3 sizes. He can even post links in the comments. You've got some like big Chungus ones. This one's like stereo with an expression. I mean, come on, that's amazing. You've got a big, huge Chungus mono. And then this is so fun. He sent me this stuff. He built big 3D. This is an LED. I mean, come on. It's a giant LED. Look at these resistors. They're just for play, but oh my God, I'm such a sucker for this stuff. And because we're doing common emitter BJT transistor circuits, he made me a transistor. No one's ever made me a transistor. Look how beautiful. Look at this. That's so nice. I can't plug it in, but it looks nice. We've even got a big film cap here. Anyway, you get the idea. So we're going to give away the breadboard I'm using today. So Alex, in the comments, let's y'all decide how you want to do that. I'm not going to pay any attention because I'm going to start building a circuit. We're going to give away this size breadboard that I'm using today. This is my favorite size because it allows me to expand and give some space for ideas. They also have all these cool adapter, like toggle switch kits and stuff. So, all right, let's get moving on because I want to keep this at an hour. Let's hope that that doesn't fall and hurt somebody. Let's see. It's all good. All right, let's build this out. So I'm going to build it part by part. And I see y'all are cooking. As the kids say, let them cook in the comment. That's horrible. I'm going to quit talking. All right, let's build this. What do I want to build first? Well, I need my input of my, I need my input to get to that cap. So let's do this first part. Input to a 0.1 cap. I don't like the 0.1 cap, but you know what? I'm just gonna suck it up and put it in there. I'm not a fan of the 0.1, but we're not focused on those caps. If you've been following this, you know what the cap does. It sets the base content. But for this demonstration, yeah, let's do that. Let's go 0.1. So I have this wire here. These are like kind of hooked up to my scope and stuff, but basically it goes into the jack like that. Now this is super important. I have a power plug. Notice it's not plugged in. That's going to end in tears for some of us. So Josh is going to, I'm talking to myself. Josh here, he is going to make sure the power is plugged in so that later he doesn't lose his mind. Okay, so I plug that power in. That means it's on. You hear a hum because ain't nothing happening. All right, so that's my input prong. So the best thing I can do here, just for speed, well, I'm going to do it nice. The Copper Sound has these nice little jumper kits. I really like these. They have all the colors that I care about. So it's nice, like, use this for power. You know, I use this for, like, the transistor bias stuff. That's the input. I have my quirky color code system I've always used. So let's do that. I'm going to plug into that little bit right there. And then we're going to start the circuit right there. So remember, going down touches. That breaks that touch. So I have a 0.1 cap here. I'm going to insert it over that bridge. That's real nice because that's going to, my guitar's going in. I'm going to actually zoom down for y'all because I'm a nice person. All right. So there we go. Yeah, we have a nice capacitor in line. So I just did that. All right, so we're done with that part. Now I want to go ahead and place my transistor, the base of that transistor. I'm going to keep it really generic here because, trust me, I've spent almost 5 hours playing with different transistor types. I mean, I went through my entire hoard here and I found tons of vintage stuff, but we don't care about that today. We're going to get into that. We're talking about, we just want to know how to put a gain control in. I wanted to show you how to breadboard this because I skipped it last time. We're just going to use a 2N3904. This is just a classic, like, run-of-the-mill transistor. There's nothing crazy about this. This part costs like a nickel. I don't even think it costs a nickel. So where am I going to put that? Well, I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to put it kind of down in the middle there. So I have some space above and below it, because essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to be hooking a lot of wires to these 3 legs. And I want to give some space. Oh my gosh. There we go. So the way I usually do a transistor is I skip one line between the legs. So there we go. We have the emitter, the base, and the collector. Okay. I've already jumpered all my grounds. So my grounds, they're connected with these jumpers. So all of these are live. I have power down here and ground, power down here and ground. So I'm live. Now, my fingers sometimes hate the breadboard because they're big. You know, I'm a tall guy. I'm a big guy. I have chunky fingers. There we go. All right, so we have loaded that in, but we haven't connected. We really haven't connected it. It's just in there. So I need to do this connection, right? The yellow part. So let's do that yellow part. How do I want to do that? I'm gonna keep it real simple. I'm actually gonna use one of the Copper Sound. They carry these as well. They're like little jumpers. They're just nice. They have all the different colors. I'm gonna take an orange one, and I'm gonna come off that cap, right? So that's where that cap touches. And I'm just gonna go ahead and plug it in the base, which is back here. So I'm plugged up. Actually, I'm not. I hate that. I want it to be clean. I want to be picky. I want it to look nice. Let's do it nice. So I'm gonna plug it in here. I'm gonna grab these pliers, they'll be helpful. And I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna plug it in back here. The lower profile, I think it helps you see it a little bit better. There you go. So I just kind of have that, you know, it's just in there. It's not perfect. Okay. So I've connected the cap to the base. I have that connection going. Now I want, yeah, this connection's done. Now I need to get this, I need to go ahead and put that in there. That is a biasing resistor across the base and the collector. So I'm going to use a 1 meg. I think you can use a lot of, you could go 1 to 3 meg here. It's not necessary to get into the benefits today, but just to pop that in, it literally just is a jump here. You're just plugging it in where the collector is. One side of the resistor is on the collector, and one side of the resistor is on the base. So that's done. Okay. Okay, that is totally done. Now what's next? We have this 47K situation here. The 47K situation, it's really tricky because you can do a lot of different things here. Basically there's a ladder of potential. And what I mean by that is this resistor and this resistor, let me circle them in yellow. These set the gain. So a lot of these famous pedals I just showed you, they actually just put a pot where these are, or fancy versions and more complex versions of that. But essentially, these 2 resistors are how you're going to get a distortion control. It's one of 3 ways you're going to get a distortion control. Okay, so there's 3 ways to do it. This is one of 3. So collector, for now, I am going to just put a 47K. I don't like the 47K necessarily, but I'm going to put it in because it works and it's what everyone starts with. So let's pull that out of my bin. 47K from the collector to 9 volt. I can do it like that. That's the beauty of the breadboard. Okay, so that's done. We have another 0.1 cap here. So if we look over, I want to get that 0.1 cap in place. That goes to the output. So let's do that. 0.1 cap off of that same spot. Well, I want it to keep going this way. The collector's over here. So this is where I want to put another jump. I don't want everything so crowded. So I'm going to take a little green piece of wire here, and I'm just going to bend that down flat like such. And I'm going to plug it into that collector spot. And I'm going to just see it goes all the way over that way. I find that helpful. That lets me put this cap right there using that bridge, the way I use that. The bridge is the thing here that breaks the line, right? So I'm straddling it. Okay, so I have that in. Now, let's just go ahead and get to that volume pot. I don't like audio taper. We're linear taper club. We know about this already. So we're gonna put a B100. I'm just gonna like put a B100 over here. And yeah, let's see. So we got the Mr. B100 and we just plug him right in. Let's see, actually. Let's put it like this. So this is just our master volume pot. A lot of those pedals I showed you, they don't even have a master volume. They just let it crank, right? So this is lug 3, 2, and 1. So I'm going to go in that cap. Technically, I could have just stretched the cap over, but I am going to connect lug. I'm going to connect this lug here. Let me pull that back up. This is lug 3 to lug 1 is how you could read that pot. And I'm just going to connect it like this. I'm going to go cap. Come on, Josh. You're better than this. There we go. Cap into lug 3. Okay. When you look here, lug 1 is in the ground. It goes down to ground. So I want to do that. I like using black, the little black wires for ground, because all my power terminals are daisy chained on the board, meaning I've used jumpers. I have an active ground there. That's nice. And then my output, I am going to use the tall, like the long cable, because I might move this around a bit. And it plugs in right over here. It says output. So right now I have a working Electra without the clipping. Well, we're about to judge if it works. Notice I haven't installed this clipping in green, but the circuit will work without that. So let's just see if it works. Oh no, it doesn't, because I didn't put the emitter resistor, because I'm a genius. I totally forgot this whole emitter section because I got all excited. Let's put a 680 in there. 680 ohm. Ohm. Oh my ohm. It goes to ground. Okay. So 680 to ground. You're going to hear the circuit turn on. What a shocker. Real time. Okay. So all my parts are in. Now that I've done that, I'm going to take I'll just erase everything so we can like start fresh if I jump back into this. So, okay. All right. Let's let's do this. So it's a very loud boost is what we have. This is essentially an LPB1 with different biasing. It sounds kind of gross and fuzzy to me. I'm not a fan of the 0.1s. So for my sanity, I'm going to remove the 0.1s because I just don't like them. And I'm going to put 0.01s in. Just so y'all can know, I can't live that way. It's too woofy. It's too woofy for me. Let's just replace those. This is breadboard magic here. This is why we do breadboards. Because I can just pop it in, pop it out. All right. Oh my gosh, it's like 400 times better. All right, so there. Yeah, we're solid. We have a working Electra. Now, we want to add the clipping, all right? And I need to move on pretty quickly here. Let's add this clipping. Everyone does this asymmetrical thing right here. Sure, let's just do that. Let's not argue. Let's do asymmetrical clipping. And the way that'll work is I'm going to do a little jumper right off the output cap, because you'll notice in the schematic, the clipping just kind of attaches itself as that signal's going to the pot. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to grab the other side of the cap, which is over here, and I'm going to just put one of these little stickers in. So I made a little jumper here for clipping, and I'm going to do one direction, a 1N4/8 going the negative sides into the ground, and I'm going to grab a BAT 41, which is just a similar to a germanium. We'll get into clipping details later. And I put it the other direction, so we have asymmetrical clipping. That made it sound good. So what's great is I can remove that jumper and listen. You know when you play pedals and they have a gain toggle and one of the positions is loud? It's because they're removing the clipping diodes. And I've done this. Everyone's done this. You know, like if you play My Moonshine, you have that mode. It's like open and robust. But then you reconnect that. All right. So here we have an Electra that is essentially done, but we want to have gain. We want to have some way to control the gain control. So what do we do here? When we look down at the circuit, what are some possibilities? Well, I think some of it starts with how hot have you made this transistor? Oh my gosh, there we go. How hot have you made that transistor? Is it super clean or super dirty? And let me show you using, I'm going to show you using a copper sound substitution box. I'm going to grab the resistor one. I'm going to move, well, I need that scope in there. I just, hold on. It is hard sometimes. I just had like, let's see, let's zoom out. So I'm going to use the resistor substitution box, okay? And I'm gonna remove the 47K. I'm gonna leave the 680. Actually, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you what happens. I'm gonna take all that back. I'm gonna recant. We're gonna mess with the 680. What happens when I remove the 680 and go straight to ground? Well, this is what happens. It sounds freaking awesome, but it's unstable. You might get some radio signals. You might have temperature issues, meaning like it is temperature, it is like, it doesn't like it, that it's hot outside. I mean, you can blow on the transistor and it changes. So let's do that. So looking down, that's this guy, right? So I'm just gonna remove that. Okay, the circuit won't work without it, but I'll take one of these nice jumpers and I'm gonna plug in the emitter. Watch this. Right to ground. Now listen. Now, one way we can compare them real quick. It's simple. I'll just put that resistor I had in there. I plugged it into ground there. So if I go back and forth like this, there's the resistor. Straight to ground. It's similar, but it's not the same. What happens now when I remove that jumper? Okay. Without the resistor, it's way dirtier and cooler. Let's put a resistor box in here. I just took the 2 terminals from the resistor sub box and I plugged it into that emitter spot. I have taken the copper sound resistor sub box and I have plugged it in right here, the 680. The 680 is now the copper sound box. All right, let's go down and do that 680. There it is, 680. I'll see. I don't know if you can read that well. Yeah, you can. Let's go down. I'm gonna drop D my guitar so I can chug. What happens? Frank Triggs is jumping ahead and talking about bypass capacitors, but he's smart. He's smart. Add a 10 UF over that. All right, we'll get to that later. 470. Ah, more gain because less resistance on the emitter means more gain. There's a point where you don't really hear it. Watch 4.7K. So we went from like 680 ohm to 4,700 ohm. So let's jump over here. Look, 100K. It's squeaky clean, man. It's too clean. It kind of sucks. 10K. Now keep in mind, I have diodes in here. But what's happening is the less amount of resistance on the emitter, the more the emitter's like, ah, it's this ladder of potential thing. This emitter, the lower that value, the dirtier the transistor gets. It's opposite up here. The higher that gets, the dirtier it gets. So you have this ladder of potential. It goes this way. These two parts are such a big deal, okay? So now that we've seen that, what are some things we could do there? Well, we could put a pot on it. We could just put a pot on the emitter. You want to do that? Let's do that. Pot on the emitter. Let's pull that box out like such. And yeah, let's just literally grab a, what do I want to grab? What do I want to grab? Let's grab like a 1K pot. Here's a C1K. This is a reverse audio taper 1K right here. Okay, let's put that right there. Just stab it into the board. All right, now we want to come off this emitter and we want this pot to restrict the gain. Actually, the 1K is not enough. Let's do something more interesting, because you saw me using the transistor, the resistor box. And I mean, it made sound all the way up to like 47K. It didn't sound good, but I'm gonna put a 10K in, and we're just gonna run that emitter through a pot. Emitter into leg 1. Remember that emitter's got to go to ground. So lug 2, let's just put it in ground right here. We have a variable. Let's switch that over. Transistor leg to lug 3. Ground lug 2 gives you that proper direction. So this is 10K. Actually, while we're doing this, because I think it's helpful, I'm going to turn my, I'm going to put this on the collector so you can see where it's biased. Watch this. There's a number that you can get in your head to associate with the sound. So the more voltage off the collector means it's cleaner. It's a headroom thing. You know how some people like 18 volts is cleaner. Well, it's a similar thing happening here where, you know, the higher that number gets, the cleaner the circuit will get. So when I add resistance, it's sucking some of that voltage. And technically the transistor's failing, but it sounds great. So that is, I believe I'm right when I say the speaker cranker. I believe the speaker cranker is that style. It's a very common way to do it. I know that the Chula and stuff does this. There's other fancy things you can do, but that person in the comments, I don't remember your name, you can do the bypass cap that I did on episode 1, 2, and 3. You just put it across. Well, you just go from emitter to ground if you want to. You could do it this way. You just plug in the positive leg there, the negative leg. Well, it completely shorts it out. Watch this. I didn't touch the pot. So the bypass capacitor lets certain frequencies bypass. And notice the bias stayed the same, but it sounds higher gain. So I did this in the Super Bolt, for instance. This is how the Chula works. What that does is that gives you a very stable transistor circuit, but gives you that high gain. It bypasses the resistor. So when we're looking over here, let's see here. Let me pull up that image again. Yeah, so we're actually adding a cap like this. Let's do it in green. You're coming over here and you're, oh my God, it's so horrible. Let's see. You're adding a cap like this. I have a 10 UF. You can do 100. What? I think I have 100 UF. It doesn't matter. What happens is your signal comes out of that emitter. That's still setting the bias here, that resistor. But what happens is it leaks. It kind of leaks and bypasses some stuff to ground, and it lets your circuit be like way more stable. So yeah, that's one thing you can do. But notice with the pot arrangement, you don't have any variance there. So what you would want to do is you could blend that cap in with a potentiometer. But let's move away from that for now. That's getting way ahead. All right, so that's our first way to do a gain control. Put a resistor on the emitter resistor. It works great. Some of you might say, because you're smart, well, when that pot's off, there's no resistance. When it's at max, it's 10K. And that means that's the clean sound we're hearing. So 10K. At that setting with my pot off, I have 10K, 10,000 ohms of resistance on that leg. When I turn it up a little, see, the dirtiest point, it's like the pot's not there. It's zero resistance. And some of you are going, well, that makes it unstable. I don't like that. Well, if you want to be safe, take that original 680 or whatever, the schematics vary. Take that original 680 thing, right? Little resistor right here. And put it before one of these wires. In other words, it'll set a limit. It won't let this go to zero. It'll be in series with it. So what I'll actually do here is I'll just remove that wire to ground, and I'll use the transistor off of lug 2. I'll use the resistor, sorry. So off lug 2. Now, that's no longer zero resistance. That is now a little bit of resistance to keep that stable. Let's put a knob on here so you can see. Okay. Now, that's the value of 0 here is actually that resistor now. So it's 680 ohm. So I turn it up. Well, to be clear, that's 680 ohm, sorry. All the way up is now 680. All the way down is 10K of resistance. So cool. Let's leave that alone and treat it like it's just static and set there. All right, so that's a great point. Now, if we look back over here, we can do this same stuff to the collector side. So let's do that. Let's take the substitution box from Copper Sound and let's play with the 47K. All right. So that substitution box, I have nowhere to put it now, but let's see here. My workbench is very polluted. All right, so that's that resistor. I'm just going to pull it out for now. We'll set it right here. We'll set it over on the breadboard. Let's plug in from the collector leg to power, because collector goes to positive, all right? I had a 47K. That's where it was. Okay. 47K. What happens when I give it less resistance? That number's going up. That's more resistance. Let's go 4.7, 3.3. You see what's happening here. As I give the collector less resistance, cleaner. So this is how we're going to notate this so you will never forget it. Let's just do black, and let's say this. This resistor, more, we'll call it R, resistance equals cleaner, right? Because it lets the bias point be higher voltage. All right. This, we'll call it the E. E equals, well, back up here to the collector. More R equals cleaner. I want to make sure you understand that. Right here, less E, okay? Less of that resistance. I'm confusing myself. There we go. Less resistance on the emitter equals, anyone know what it means? Anyone know what it equals? If I put less resistance on there, it is more distortion. That's the way to think about that. So it's obviously the opposite is true. So if you put more resistance, you have less distortion. So these are 2 points that you can change with variable resistance. The 47K that I'm on now, if I go more resistance, it's going to get cleaner and cleaner. Down here, if I go less resistance, you're going to have more distortion, okay? And the opposite is true. So, yeah, what we have just done is we've inserted this resistor substitution box in, and you can kind of find a point you might want to do. You know, everybody's like 4.7K or 47K is what you kind of see. Remember, we have the clippers in, so they're hogging a ton of the headroom. That's okay. Put them back in. Let's see here. What do I want there? Let's just put a pot. Let's put a, let's take out the resistor substitution box. And let's just say we want to put a potentiometer there. I think a good place to land on that, I have a ton of notes where I was like messing with this earlier, but I don't know. We could do another 10K. Yeah, let's use 10Ks. No, let's use 50K because a lot of people put a 47K here. So we're going to use a B50K. That gives us the potential to go up to that 47K at least that most people do. Okay, so let's put it right here. Let's put a knob on it. My screwdriver has disappeared. There it is. Let's put a knob on here so you can see what's happening. All right, so that'll be 0. Let's use those jumper wires. Collector to lug 3. Lug 2 is always the input. Well, it's always the output of a pot because that's where it's going to mix. That's the wiper of the pot. Plug it into the 9-volt voltage. All right. As I turn that knob, yeah, like that's 0 resistance. That's not going to work. So one thing I can do here is go, where does it turn back on? And maybe set, I need to set a limit. The same way I set a limit here of 680 ohm, I need a limit here because all the way up, like all the way up, it's not playing. And then if I barely move it, watch. At like 8 volts, I hear signal. How do we know what to put there? Well, all I got to do is, I want to know what that point is, right? I need to know what resistance I have here. It's going to be kind of small. Let's unplug these. Let's plug these prongs in, move the meter to ohm. And let's see what this says. 2K. 2,000 of the 50,000 ohm in this pot. So I go up here to my parts bins. I grab a 2K. Okay. I can put this back on the bias now. Let's put it back. Move that back to voltage. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I have a 2K resistor right here. Just a classic 2K. Look at it. Okay. Here we go. Let's put that 2K off the middle to power to the red line, 9 volt. All right. Let's take this one and plug it in to lug 3. I won't need this anymore because that's 0 resistance. I just replaced 0 resistance with 2,000 ohm resistance because that's what the pot measured. Now, when I turn it down, it isn't actually 0 anymore. Look, it has 2,000 ohm in the line. So I fixed the dead spot. Is the 50K the best potentiometer here? No. It's not. Let me move this over to this side. Yeah, so I have a gain control on the emitter. I have a gain control on the collector. And right now they're both maxed. So, you know. There's a lot of tones here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I could do. Yeah, so pretty interesting. Let's go back to the schematic here. So we have added potentiometers right here and right here. That's classic, like the best way to figure out some kind of control for yourself is you can do that. You can put resistor limits with the pots like I've shown you. Those are like pretty big no-brainers, right? This is, yeah, this is where we're at. Okay. Now let's break the trace here and let's do what the like Emerson M drive kind of thing is, where if you set the bias up pretty hot, which I have, let's set the both of these to like max, right? So I have essentially right now, my emitter is 680 ohm. So that means, remember, the lower this resistor is on the emitter, the more gain potential you have coming from the emitter. But if you go to 0, it's unstable. So I would suggest something here. Okay. On this, we have a 2K. That would be like, that's your limit. So 2K. All right, let's add that Emerson kind of gain control. It's not Emerson, but I mean, it's on so many pedals. It's on full tone, like fuzz pedals. It's a super classic, like no one invented this. It's just common sense because it's, you're limiting, you're interjecting right here, and you're putting your guitar volume pot here. It's a pre-volume. That's all you're doing, pre-volume control. So let's wire in a pre-volume control, knowing that this circuit right now, because of my arrangement, it's like max gain. It's like almost a fuzz, okay? So how do we want to do that? Well, the easiest thing we can do is remove that first jumper. So I've broke the input to that first cap. I just took it away. And we're just going to put a pot there. Let's think like a guitar. So, you know, 250K. I'm going to put a 250K. Yeah, 250K is great. A lot of guitar pots are 250K. So let's just start there and imagine. Sure. All right, let's put it right here. Okay. Let me put on a knob for you. Let's see. I can see in the comments there's a little bit of like, there's some semantics in what I was saying and how I was explaining it. I need to try to explain better. Lower value on the collector equaling less or more, just like, I'll get into that in just a second, or I might, they play together. The ladder of potential I kept talking about. It depends, the collector and the collector resistor and the emitter resistor, you have to think of them together because they're doing that bias job. And also the resistor over the collector and the base is part of this, but we don't really mess with it. It's more about letting it leak some voltage from that collector to the base. We're just letting it leak voltage, which makes sure that, because the signal going into the base has to have, you have to have a bias point here where the green is. Where that green little circle X is, this is leaking voltage from the collector back through. It's a feedback loop. So that's part of the bias. So we can leave that alone, but just remember, I know some of you might be confused. This and this are a ladder of potential. Playing with these, they interact with each other. So I just want to like drive that home again. I already saw a couple comments where I think people were misunderstanding what I was saying. So, all right, let's get this pot inserted, pre-volume control. How do we do it? We're just going to be real practical here. And we're going to take a 250K pot, and we're just going to wire it up like a variable resistor in the same exact way that I've wired these up as variable resistors. Like, we're not going to make it complicated. I'm going to use a yellow wire from the input of the board to the lug 1 of the pot, another yellow wire provided by Copper Sound. Also, just another big thanks to Copper Sound. This is not sponsored content. It's me just having fun teaching you guys circuitry. But this stuff that they've developed, it's really great. Yeah, they've been sending me free stuff, but I'm not getting paid for this. I chose to show it off because I love it. I just want to make that super clear. All right. What do we got here? Let's see. We need to ground that off for that to make sense. So, yeah, if I want to do a true, yeah, hold on. What was I thinking? You need to go into the pot And then you need to ground the other lug because, let's see here. Wait. Hold on. Let me remember a little backwards here. My brain is hurting. I think this is actually just not plugging in well. Hold on. Let's go down. Yeah, it's not. Actually, the circuit is not working properly. Hold on 1 second. It has nothing to do with the pot. I think I shook something loose. Troubleshooting, it's my game. Yeah, hold on. The circuit quit working. Something's loose. Oh, this pot is loose over here. That wire's loose. I love problems. There we go. That blue wire was loose. All right, let's go back to this. Into the pot, into the 250K, out of that pot as a variable resistor to that cap. That's backwards. The rotation's backwards. So go into lug. Lug 3 is the input. We want to go to ground as well here. Lug 1 to ground. Plugged it in up here on the ground. Lug 2 to the capacitor. Lug 3 is the input. You can wire it a bunch of different ways. I don't like the 250K at all. That was a horrible idea. It's just too much resistance on the front, and the impedance, it's not something you want to do. So let's put a B100K here, like a civilized human. All right, so. Ah, yeah, B100K. Let's go back and scratch the nonsense of the 250K. That's the devil's work right there. Here we go. B100K pot. Okay. Check it out. Let me put a knob on so you can see it. So down is 0. Why is it 0? It's 0 because your guitar volume's off. That's what's happening. Okay. This is essentially just the pot of your guitar. I hope the giveaway has gone well. Just checking in on that. Let's see here. I love Bourbon Loft Studios. Comment. Nick should do breadboarding because, you know, he's got tiny hands. Yep. All right. So look, pot is off. 0 resistance. Clean it up, right? We're imagining, it says distortion. Imagine the user, the pedal's printed and it says gain, right? Well, that's off. Ah, we want to limit that, don't we? We want to do what we did here. We don't want it to go all the way off because that's kind of lame. Maybe the cleanest tone, maybe the cleanest tone is right there. Right there. Let's measure what that is. 25% of that pot. Now you could say, well, it's 25K because it's a 100K pot. That won't ever work because it just won't work. So let's put this over its linear taper. So put it over on ohm. Unplug these for a second just so there's no capacitance. We have a 13K, so 13,000 ohms out of 100K. Yeah, 92 would be what's going off to ground there. So yeah, let's put a 13K-ish resistor. Yep, let me plug this back up to the bias point. All right, let's plug this back up. That goes to ground, lug 1 to ground, lug 2 over to the input of your guitar input, and then you're going to come out of lug 2 of the pot, the wiper, to that circuit, to the input cap. Okay, I'm wrapping up here. All right. What resistor did I say? Can someone tell me in the chat what was the resistance I just said? My brain totally did not grab a hold of it. Someone save me so I don't have to remeasure it. I'm gonna wait on you. I'm waiting. Someone tell me. This is a test. Pop quiz. Pop quiz. What resistance did I just measure? Was it 3K? 30K? What was it? 13? 13. Mr. Mont, I love you. Okay. Mr. Mont, you win something. I don't know. Someone give him Bell, Joshua, Copper Sound. Give him something. I'll pay for it. Thank you, Mr. Mont. All right. We just want to add a resistance here. I think we just add it over to ground. So we don't want it to ever go all the way down. So I'm going to come off of lug 1 to ground. Look at that. Now my 0 drive pot, right? This is the drive pot. See, us pedal builders, we just trick you. We want you to think it's a distortion knob that's adding distortion. But really, this distortion knob is just attenuating where the circuit is. It's not adding any distortion. So this is how pedals work. It's not, the names on the knobs are not technically... You know, you play a distortion pedal a lot of times. Some of them are this way, but you play the pedal and you're like, oh, it's adding so much distortion to this clean circuit. No, this is a perfect example. This pot is just literally attenuating a circuit that's not moving at all. It's doing the same thing as turning your guitar volume down. Check it. That's nice. Like, that's legitimately nice. Now, collector voltage, emitter voltage, emitter resistances, sorry, collector resistance, emitter resistance. Clipping. I remove those clippers. Well, let's just finish on that. We're going to wrap up. It's 4:17. So, add resistance to the collector. That can be a gain control, a distortion control. Add resistance to an emitter. That can be a distortion control. That's things like, you know, on a speaker cranker and a lot of the love pedal stuff, there is no volume pot. They're not even doing that. They're coming straight out to the output. And this is just the knob that's on the front. There's another pedal that I really love. I had it setting up the love pedal JTM. That's what it's doing. That knob is just a resistor on the emitter, like the speaker cranker. Okay. Then that pre-gain's nice. That's kind of the Emerson thing there. So these clippers, last way to add a gain control. I'll do this really quickly. We're going to put another variable resistor, a pot, right here. We're not going to go directly into the diodes. We're going to go through a pot to the diodes. Okay? Let's go through a pot to the diodes. There are so many pots on this. It's hilarious. Let's start with something like, I want to say 10K. I'm going to be off. Let's do a 10K. Let me grab a 10K. This is the, I love Harmonicaster. Love pedals, circuits are simple but sound great. Yeah, the Electra's so simple. It's beautiful. Like, no hate. Like, I hate how people hate on some of this. They'll be like, well, it's just an Electra. I've now spent hours in front of you on an Electra. So just saying it's just an Electra, that doesn't mean, I mean, this is finesse here. This is like extremely graceful designing, because everything you do barely changes everything. So when people say it's just an Electra, and they sound like, it's just an Electra, it's like, man, no, it's not. None of these love pedals are just an Electra. The speaker cranker is not just an Electra. It just needs to be said, like, there's so much finesse in this type of engineering. I love it. All right. We're adding a control here. That control is real simple. We want the pot to be before the diodes to ground. I'm going to do this sloppy so I can get out of here and go cook some burgers for my family. It is almost dinner time. We're going to run into the center, lug 2, from that point. All right, that's the output cap. We're running right here to be super clear. I know y'all want to know how to do this, so here's all I'm doing. I am breaking. Best way to describe it is like, don't do this. But right here, I'm inserting, like, it has to go into a potentiometer. That is a horrible drawing, but you get the idea. These diodes are after a potentiometer, and that's going to be a blendish control. We saw this on the LPB booster driver fuzz I designed, because it's kind of, I saw it, it's been done for years. It's a popular DIY thing, but I think of the Nick Greer pedal that's so great, the Green Giant or something. So I'm just putting these diodes to ground off of lug 3. So I'm coming out of the output cap through the green wire into lug 2, and then out of lug 3, the diodes go to ground. So what is that going to do? 10K, I don't know. That's interesting. Let me go a little more. Let me go 100K. That level of resistance is a matter of how... Okay, I heard it there. You know, you're resisting the diodes grabbing signal. So the diodes are off. I don't have another pot, but I will take a Sharpie here. That is where the knob line would be. Okay. This is where I'm going to wrap. The 100K is too much. So there's like, you know, you can play with this stuff. It might be 10K. 10K might feel best. I don't know. 5K felt like crap. Did I do 10K earlier? I did do 10K. What's 250 feel like? I don't know. You get the idea. You just play with that resistance. So here's where we are. I now have 4 gain controls on one Electra. This is not a good product. It's kind of stupid. You know, if you start messing with the knobs, you're going to have a couple dead spots, probably. But look at this. I have an input gain control like an Emerson N drive. I have a collector gain control like tons of stuff. A lot of the love pedal stuff's this way. The Trotsky DIY was wired this way. I have an emitter one, which is like speaker cranker, the JTM by Love Pedal. I think the Chula is this way. And then I have a clipping blend, which is like the Greer thing. I mean, there's all 4, right? This is a 5-knob Electra pedal. That's ridiculous. Don't do that unless you're really in for some fun. But here's everything maxed, which is like, you know, You could have this circuit all the way open. So right now, I could have a pedal with no knobs, right? I have full volume, full clipping, emitter at 680, collector at 2K, full input volume. Watch this. There you go. The the Electra is beautiful. The Electra is beautiful. We have done these gain controls, and yeah, you can stare at it. You can look at it. I'm done. I went over my wanted hour, but hey, here we go. Andrew, you did say without the mic audio. I did forget that. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. Here we go. Without that mic in front of me, which it's picking up the strings. Sorry about that. Here it is again. Full potential circuit. Okay? And I'll turn off the talking mic. Sorry about that. There you go. The Electra is super versatile. It's super amazing. Let me know in the comments how you felt about the length of this. I wanted to do an hour. It's a lot. There's so much to this. This is the thing when people say, it's just an Electra, or you just cloned this. It's like, no. Understanding the basic topologies and functions of these circuits is really beautiful. The knowledge is so nice. You know, you can appreciate the fact that I think I brought home from the Archive Museum 20 Electra style circuits. I didn't even grab them all. They're all different. They're not clones of each other. That language is really not smart. It's just not smart. It's just a clone. No, it's someone setting with a common emitter amplifier, a single transistor circuit, and having nuance and grace with it. And like, it's so exciting to me that you can make something so versatile from literally just a few parts. But that doesn't make it simple. It actually means that the fewer parts you have, and you're going to see this when I teach you fuzz face, the fewer parts you have, every part really matters. So let's be more careful with some of this language that we see people using on forums, like, it's just an Electra. No, it's not. Someone sat for hours, days, and they tweaked it to how they heard it. And it's their Electra. And that company can make that circuit and do wonderful things. I love how different the M drive is from the speaker cranker and the Amp 50 or the Chula. These are totally different pedals. It's great. Anyway, that's my soapbox. I'm going to end this real quick. Brian Wampler, in the description below, there's a discount code if you want to jump into his courses. I'm just going to end on this ad. Brian has something to tell you. There's a discount code. He's doing a Pedal University course. It's super, super cool. So leave me any questions you have in the comments. I personally have been reading all the short circuit comments. Let me know what you think, what you want to see next. The next episode will be Electra. I don't necessarily know what I'll go over. I might go over the clipping diodes and what does what and what all the stuff means and why different diodes sound different. But for now, here's a Wampler ad and I'm out. Have a wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
If you're watching this video, you probably have some sort of interest in DIY guitar pedals. Well, it just so happens that I released a course about this at the very same time at guitarpedalcourse.com. It's called The Complete Beginner's Guide to How to Design Guitar Pedal Circuits. So if you just go there, use the coupon code JHS25. That gets you 25% off of the entire course. It's almost 8 hours long of this type of stuff where I detail everything about learning the basics of guitar pedal circuits, just kind of like what Josh is doing, but it's a little bit more formatted towards like a course style thing rather than a YouTube video, not to take anything away from Josh. But I think you'll love it. Josh's blessing, he liked it as well, and I think just serendipitous, right? We were both thinking the same sort of thing and both kind of having fun with DIY at the same time, just in different ways. So you may enjoy it. Check it out. And thanks, Josh, for mentioning it.